So I am in beautiful Denbighshire in Wales. It's been a long time since I've done a video. I've been busy training, fighting, busy with the gym, traveling with fighters and stuff, so busy with the fight life. But yeah, thought I'd make a little video today. As like I say, we are in Denbighshire in Wales. Just stayed in a nice little lodge with a hot tub. So what brings me here? This trip, I've been meaning to do this for a very, very long time. And how this came about, and this is the reason why I got into family history and history in general. So when I was younger, my granddad, a man named Harry Moss, his actual real name is Thomas Henry Moss, which is my middle name, and it's actually my son's middle name as well, so the name has been passed down. But when his birth was registered, his dad was called Thomas Henry, my great-grandfather, and his mum wanted him, didn't want him to be called Thomas Henry. She wanted him to be called Harry or Eric. They were the names she wanted. And then, so when my great-granddad registered him, he just put his own name down, put him as Thomas Henry. So yeah, but for all his life, he got called Harry. He lived most of his life in Thorn in Doncaster, where I was born and where I've grown up. But he was actually born in Wales. So he used to tell me about, the time in Wales when he spent most of his life in Doncaster, but he would travel back and meet his family and stuff. And he would always say that his family and my family owned a castle in Wales. And his side of the family were all farmers. So he said the family owned a castle and they all farmed and stuff around this castle. And it sounded a bit far-fetched. My granddad, got dementia eventually, so it was hard to figure out what was true and what was false. But yeah, he always banged on about this castle. I thought it might have just been like maybe a big house, a big estate that they owned. And anyway, he said it was his uncle. He said it was his uncle that owned the castle. That was the thing. I didn't think too much about it. Anyway, later on in life, I got into fighting. So when I'm sort of 13, 14 years old, I'm fighting all the time, competing, and he brought it up again, and he said my dad was a boxer. He was an amateur boxer. And I'm like, all right. And then he's like, yeah, he used to train the castle that we had in Wales. He used to train there. He used to spar there, and he actually sparred with a guy called Randolph Turpin, who was middleweight world champion at one point. And he told me this story that my great-granddad, Thomas Henry, was an amateur boxer, and he used to spar with Randolph, who was a professional boxer. And he said to Randolph, Randolph said to him, do you want to become a professional? Why don't you become a professional? And he said, listen, I want no part of it. If that's the level of professional boxing, then yeah, I'm going to stay as an amateur. So that was giving respect to Randolph, saying that he was a very tough, hard man. And yeah, my great-granddad never boxed professionally, but apparently had a lot of amateur fights back in the day. So yeah, the legend lives on in the family. Again, my middle name is Thomas Henry. I'm named after my great-grandfather, and yeah, obviously I'm a professional fighter by trade. So yeah, and the years went by. My granddad passed away, and then I started looking into the family history, started digging in, getting involved in genealogy and stuff like that, which is a big part of my life now. And I found some very, very interesting stuff. So we're here in Denbighshire now to test out this theory and see if my granddad was telling the truth. So we are in Abergele in Wales, and this is, if I pronounce it right, Gwrych Castle. Gwrych. I'll only say that once, I might be pronouncing it wrong, but yeah, this is the castle, and it is massive. I've seen pictures of it before, but this is the first time I've actually seen the castle in person. So the castle itself has 18 towers, and it sits in Abergele on a 236 acre estate. It was built in the early 1800s by a man named Lloyd Hesketh Bamford Hesketh, and now his family had owned this land back to sort of medieval times. So a few hundred years back there was still buildings here, and they used this site to build this absolutely huge castle. So let's go take a look at it. So yeah, it's a lot bigger than I actually thought. Built in the Gothic Revival style. Again, early 1800s. I think about 1815 they started building. There's Roman and Jade. So yeah, absolutely massive, and just tucked away on the side of this hill as well. So it's got a bit of natural protection. So just walked up this little hill here. This looks like the main entrance. You can see this big arch here, blocked off for now. But yeah, huge place. Again, when my granddad told me about this castle in Wales, I thought it was just like a big manor house, something like that, maybe. But this is a legit castle. So, when this Lloyd Hesketh passed away, the castle obviously got passed down through his family, and it ended up with his granddaughter, who was called Winifred. Now, she became Lady Dundonald. She married a man called Douglas Cochrane, who was the 12th Earl of Dundonald. So the Dundonald Earls were a noble Scottish family. So this Douglas, his grandfather, was actually a famous Earl. He was a naval captain. They called him the Sea Wolf, Thomas Cochrane, and he fought in the Napoleonic Wars. So this castle is also famous for being on I Am a Celebrity. So this is the well from I Am a Celebrity, and this is the little set here. So that was in COVID, when they weren't allowed to travel or what have you, and yeah, this is the castle from I'm a Celebrity, so you might have recognised it from there. And I think what happened is, going on I'm a Celebrity, like I'm a Celebrity, using this castle really helped it, because this was derelict for many years. It was really run down, but I think the money that they've made from I'm a Celebrity, and then the attention that it got, bringing more visitors, has helped them restore it and renovate it, and yeah, so I'm a Celebrity has done them a lot of favours. So in 1924, unfortunately, the Lady Dundonald, she died, and she left this castle to the then Prince of Wales. He was called George, and he was from the house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. So if you know anything about British royal history, you'll know that George, the Prince of Wales, from the house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, became King George V of England. So it was King George who changed the name of the house to the House of Windsor. Obviously the house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha sounds a bit too Germanic, and we know that our royal family has Germanic roots. So yeah, he changed it to the House of Windsor, which sounds a bit more British, patriotic. So he actually owned this castle, but he had no real use for it. I think she wanted him to have it as the seat of the Prince of Wales and have this as his castle, but he wasn't really interested in it, so he ended up selling it back to Lady Dundonald's husband, Douglas Cochrane, who bought this entire castle, this entire 236 acre estate, for the sum of just £70,000. Nice view from this angle. the sea there. The Dundonald family remained the owners of this castle for a number of years, but they didn't actually live here, so it was just an estate that they owned. Then, in 1939, this castle was actually used as part of the Kindertransport. Now, the Kindertransport was an operation that happened during World War II, where they was getting all the young children, the young Jewish children, out from all the areas where the Nazis were, you know, going in, sending the Jews off to Auschwitz. Well, they managed to rescue lots of children. Thousands of them got brought to the UK, and there was 200 Jewish children housed in this castle during World War II as part of that Kindertransport programme. I'm sure there's a film on it, and I think it's Anthony Hopkins who plays the guy. There's a famous clip, you always see it on Facebook and stuff crop up, of a guy on the Esther Rantzen show, and he's sat with loads of people, and he was one of the guys who brought these children over. And Esther Rantzen says to the crowd, if there's anybody in the crowd whose you know, lives have been saved by this man during the Kindertransport, please stand up. And the full crowd stands up. It's really yeah, it's very emotional, very cool thing to watch if you get a chance. But yeah, part of that Kindertransport was here. 200 Jewish children, you know, children who've been orphaned because of the Nazis, got to live in this castle. After World War II, 1946, the Dundonald family sold the castle to a man named Jesse Robert Rennie. Now, Jesse Robert Rennie was my great-grandfather's first cousin. So Jesse Robert Rennie's grandfather, who was actually from Scotland, was a man called James Rennie. James Rennie is my 3 times great-grandfather. So that makes Jesse Robert Rennie my first cousin, 3 times removed. So my granddad wasn't actually lying. The part he got wrong is he said it was his uncle that owned the castle, but it wasn't his uncle, it was his dad's first cousin. Now, I have it all the time with some of my dad's cousins. I would refer to him as uncle. It's just one of those things that we do. But yeah, it was his dad's first cousin was the owner of this castle, Jesse Robert Rennie. Another great view. So my great-grandfather was called Thomas Henry Moss. Like I said before, my middle name is Thomas Henry. My little boy Roman, his middle name is Thomas Henry as well. So Thomas Henry's mum was Agnes Rennie, a big old Scottish woman, and yeah, she was from this same Rennie family. Her father was James Rennie, again the grandfather of Jesse Robert Rennie. So Agnes was Jesse's auntie, and this Rennie family, they actually descend from Scottish nobility. So they are direct descendants of the famous King Robert the Bruce, which means that my 24th great-grandfather was Robert the Bruce, the man himself. So yeah, very rich Scottish heritage, but the Rennies had moved down into Wales, and so Jesse Robert Rennie, he was born in Wales and ended up being the owner of this castle. So my granddad weren't lying. Should have listened to him more often. So now let's get to the part about the boxing gym. Sounds a bit ridiculous, a boxing gym in the middle of a castle. Now, turns out Randolph Turpin did actually train here, and there is lots and lots of footage and well, lots of photos. There is some footage which I will show, but this is where the boxing ring and everything was set up. So I've identified it from the photos. So Randolph Turpin, he was the son of a man called Lionel Turpin, who went by the the nickname of Dick Turpin, like the old robber. But this Lionel Turpin was the first ever black British champion. So his son, Randolph, he was mixed race, and yeah, he was from Warwickshire, I believe. There is a statue of him there. But yeah, he trained here in this castle for his famous fight with Sugar Ray Robinson, where he fought and he won the middleweight world title. So yeah, again, turns out my granddad wasn't lying. My great-grandfather was here at that time, training, did some sparring with Randolph Turpin. Yeah, like I say, there's some footage, there's lots of photos, and yeah, Randolph had a bit of a sad ending though. So you can actually see here, you can see this is a memorial urn of Randolph Turpin. He trained in the late 1940s, 1950s, so 1946 is when Jesse Robert Rennie bought this castle, where he won the world middleweight title. Randolph was reputedly the first black fighter to win a British boxing title, so that is actually wrong. It was his father, Dick Turpin, or Lionel Turpin. So yeah, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame 2001. We have got more information on our visitor route. So there you go, and this is where the ring and everything was set up. So very cool. Just as a little side note, another famous boxer also trained here, and he was from Doncaster. So a man named Bruce Woodcock was also training here at that time. Now, I'm not sure if this is right, but he could have been a factor in why my family then moved from here to Doncaster. Maybe with some family connections, maybe he got on work there, but whatever happened, Bruce Woodcock was training here. Bruce ended up he was a landlord of a pub in Edlington, which is not far from Thorn. So yeah, there is a bit of a Doncaster connection there that maybe I need to explore. But yeah, Bruce Woodcock also training here while my family were training here, my great-grandfather and other members of the family as well. So yeah, lots of connections. Unfortunately, so Randolph, he was a poor man. He got fame and wealth from becoming a boxing world champion, and then he ended up, I think the taxman came after him, and he ended up in poverty, and he ended up, unfortunately, he was punch drunk and he shot himself. But before he shot himself, he shot his own daughter. So he committed suicide. It was a murder-suicide attempt at least, but his daughter actually survived, and she was fine. I think she was very young at the time when he shot her, but yeah, unfortunately he died, and yes, that was the end of Randy Turpin. So that is it. That is Gwrych Castle. Probably pronouncing that wrong again. I do not speak Welsh. But yeah, that is it. Turns out my granddad was telling the truth all along. The family did own a castle in Wales. We did have a boxing gym in the castle where Randolph Turpin trained and became world champion. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. Love to spend more time here. There is actually a lodge here where you can stay, so I will come back. We'll stay here at some point. But yeah, we're going to visit some other places now. So I'll finish the video off with this poem from Randolph Turpin. So when he finished his boxing career, he had 66 wins, 8 losses. 45 of those wins he won by knockout. He was world champion, had it all. Sadly, though, he took his own life. But when he retired from boxing, he wrote this little short poem. So we'll finish with this. So we leave this game, which is hard and cruel, but then down at the show, on a ringside stool. We watched the next man. Just another fool.